Welcome, Eddie, to Random Access Minds, the first podcast this year. So happy New Year to everyone. And I'm really excited today because you have been, you will be or have been a player of Louis the Master that I have on my podcast last year, which was really exciting. So it's really exciting to have one of his players actually being here. So before we start, could you give us a little bit of, who are you? What kind of hobbies? Obviously, pen and paper. But what are you about? Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Eddie, hailing from England. I've been a Dungeons and Dragons player now for 3 years. When was the pandemic? That's when I got into it.
Oh wow! Pandemic is I think 2020. Yeah.
Okay, 4 years.
2019.
Wow, 4 years.
2019, 2020. Yeah.
I used to be. In terms of roleplay, I was on this forum roleplay for X-Men. And I got quite good friends with them, and one of them was a dungeon master. So, despite us all being in different time zones, we all tried to do a session only the one time. When you're working with 7 different time zones, it just
7 different.
It just kind of fell through a little bit.
I can imagine. I mean, it is already difficult to do this in one time zone.
Yes. Scheduling is the main enemy of any TTRPG.
Yes.
But yeah, we did it, and I really liked it. And I did more research into it. I found Critical Role. I then lost most of the pandemic to Critical Role. Like a lot of people, I think.
Yes.
But then I went on D&D Beyond, found that. Thanks, Critical Role, for that. I went on the Let's Find a Group. I found a nice little group that I started on a Saturday in the morning. I'm not a morning person, so that was a brave decision for me. And I loved it. We did Minds of Fendover, which is a really good first player game. And it was so homebrew. From what I understand of how Minds of Fendover is meant to go, we were so off script. One of the players betrayed us to the big bad, and we ended up killing her and the big bad. But then from there, it just kind of escalated. I am currently in 5 different games.
Oh wow! But in what time scale? Every week or or within every week 5?
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and my Friday one starts 10 p.m. my time.
How long have you done this now? For how long are you in 5 kind of sessions, 5 groups?
For a while now. When I first started, it just kind of snowballed a bit because during the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands. I was working from home, couldn't see anyone. I was like, let's do this. This is fun. And then I felt bad leaving when I joined the campaign. I felt bad just leaving.
Oh no!
Just kept going, and I'm still here. Although I did at one point, I did scale it back to just a Friday and a Saturday game. This was with an American group.
Oh wow!
It starts 10 p.m. my time, so GMT. Ends 1 in the morning, which isn't too bad. I've got the weekend too.
Okay, yeah,
and I go to sleep pretty much dead on 1:30.
Yeah,
I love them. They're a great group, and we've been together now for 4 years.
But for someone that started 4 years ago, in the scale of everything, how long that hobby is out there, you must truly you must truly enjoy this so much to play so many characters and be in so many groups. What does fascinate you about this hobby the most?
I think it's the storytelling. I love stories. Even when I play traditional video games, it's the story that I love. I don't care about FPS, how many things I can kill. I want to experience the story. Every game I've loved on the PlayStation or the computer has been about either strategy, which I just think is another way of storytelling, or just the plain story. I like learning. I like seeing what they've written and experiencing it, the lows and the highs and the end point, the final fruition. And yeah, you get that with D&D, and you get to be involved in it and contribute to it and do anything. And yeah.
When did you realize, kind of like when you started out with Vandelver, kind of like it clicked for you? Is there a moment during that first campaign where you really feel this is awesome, this is great?
It was, we were all very new. Even the dungeon master had never DM'd before. I don't think he'd ever played before.
Oh,
Yeah, we were very. It was.
that's cool.
It was just.
But that's cool. I love that.
The demo was just like, I kind of want to give this a go. Let's see how it goes. We all applied. We all started, and that was. It's weird. It was the first time. My first group was all British group, which is interesting because that was the first and like the last 4 years that I was with a British group, and it went really well. We were all very new, and then I am a self-declared rules lawyer. So once I kind of got the bite, I then dedicated a lot of time to learning the rules. Just because I like knowing what I can do.
True. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. Let's dig there a little bit deeper. As a self-proclaimed rules lawyer, how do you feel always? Because I always wonder. Because I have also one player on my table who is let's say very rules lawyery in a positive way, not in a bad way. But how do you always feel when DM is kind of like improvising or kind of like ruling over the rules? What works for you? What doesn't work for you?
It's interesting, the intersection with the DM. I don't know. I'm a really big teacher's pet, so in my head, I have no issue with the DM like doing whatever the hell they want, because in my like hierarchy of D&D, the DM's at the top. So like they're more than happy to move the rules around and everything. That's never really, which is interesting, but it's never really bothered me. I understand, like, they get final decision, and there's been times when I've like when Lou's allowed something and I'll mention this rule and he says I'm running this. It's like, okay. Like they get final say. It's never bothered me that much. And
because it's one of the rules, right?
Yes, exactly.
One of the rules is that the master has the last say.
Yes.
That's what I always tell rules lawyers.
It is in the rules that the DM gets final say, and that works for me.
Yeah.
I always try, especially, I do feel guilty sometimes when I mention something, because I know a lot of people might take it like, oh, he's trying to ruin the fun or trying to ruin what I'm doing. But I always try to contribute to the narrative rather than like just ex-nay something. And yeah, and Lou hasn't kicked me out of any of his games yet, so it. I think you're doing a good job.
It is fine. I mean, there is no master or no player in this world that I know that be now D&D Pathfinder or whatever doesn't know every crink and nuki about every rule. But it's, I think the benefit of having someone on the table who does understand the rule does pose sometimes an interesting question, because sometimes you just encounter shit we did it wrong all the time. Now, but there is no wrong or right as long as the narrative and everything is fun. So
yeah.
Having so many, groups that you play with, you must have gone in those months and years that you're doing it in a lot of processes, creating characters. How do you approach your character creation? How do you come up with the characters? And maybe would be great if you could give us maybe one concrete example that you're currently playing and how you came up with that character. Yeah.
So it's the inspiration that always gets me first. There's the DM would explain what the setting is and kind of what the campaign's about, and then I'll either then or a few hours later or a couple of days later I'll be doing something, and this thought or just little tidbit just floats into my head, and I just fucking bite down on it, because it's just like, what if this? I was like, ooh. And then what if that? And what if that meant that? And then it just starts brick by brick by brick. And it's always that initial spark of something. And it tends to be contrast or a dichotomy between two things. I love
Okay,
there being
nice.
some kind of conflict or contrast in the character. Example would be with Lewis, we are doing Descent into Avernus,
Oh, yes.
and I am
That's a good
playing
one.
a Tiefling Oath of Devotion Paladin of Illmater.
Oh my fucking god. That is contrasty, especially
Yes,
for that campaign.
yes. And
But like
I,
for the people that are not too familiar with maybe D&D, except for Tiefling maybe,
yeah,
but could you quickly just give us a rundown what the Paladin of Devotion and Ilmater means, just that people kind of like get the contrast a
yeah.
little bit for those who are not
So
so familiar with Faroon.
you've got Tiefling, so infernal heritage, so some kind of demonic or devilish ancestry from at some point, either, great old granddaddy made a pact with the devil, or, I don't know, birth at some point down the line. Um, and what I love most about that is that the parents can have nothing to do with it. It really could be like generations and generations and generations ago, and then lo and behold, you give birth to a blue or green or red devil child.
Yes.
um, you've got Paladin, as we all know, the Holy Avenger, the Knight, very typically very virtuous. Oath of Devotion is very. It's kind of the classic cookie cutter Paladin
Okay.
archetype. It's very people deserve a second chance. We do things because it's the right thing to do. We have a moral obligation to do things, ethics, and all that kind of lovely chivalry and all that kind of stuff. And the way and when you've got Ilmater, who is one of my favorite deities, I will admit.
Oh, really?
It was very easy for me to just latch onto that because I played a monk from an Ilmater monastery a while ago, so I kind of knew a bit about him that I could just bring in. And he's all about essentially martyrdom and self-sacrifice. He's willing to take on the pain of others so they don't have to feel it. And it's very self-sacrificing. It's very his churches double as soup kitchens for poor, and the biggest one being in Baldur's Gate, which was very handy for Descent into Avernus,
It
which,
is, yes.
despite only being based there for one chapter, has it in the title. There's also a good laugh. There's a whole section on how Baldur's Gate functions, and yet
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
spend one chapter there.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely there. And for those who don't know, Descent in Avernus is actually kind of like the pre-campaign to Baldur's Gate 3, which I
Yes.
truly, honestly love because there are some details in the books, if you read everything through, that actually, spoiler, not maybe the whole thing, but they spoiler certain characters that were really influential in what is coming down the line, which I love that they
Yeah.
actually did it in this way. So when you're contrasting that, because I always find this interesting when somebody plays a paladin or a cleric in traditional sense.
I love clerics.
What other people are in the group? What kind of
Okay.
other players are you playing
So
with? Characters.
we have a rogue who's
Okay.
very mildly criminal, not
Okay.
mostly fine. So what Lewis does, he mostly does new player campaigns. So all the
Mm,
players are new, other than
yes,
me as the experienced. He kind of acts as his assistant in terms of teaching and support. Um,
that's cool.
we have a rogue, we have a ranger who is
Mm,
Beastmaster with a
mm.
Komodo dragon companion
That's cool.
who my character has beef with.
Oh wow.
Well, the Komodo dragon, not the ranger.
Okay, the dragon. Okay, the
Yes,
dragon.
there
Yeah,
was. We
which
were
makes
in.
sense. Yeah,
We were in this. I don't know how familiar you are with the campaign.
yeah. But I'm familiar that I played it to a certain extent already. The Avernus. Yes.
So I forget what they're called, but we're in this mansion, and underneath is this whole cult
That's three.
setup. Yeah,
Yeah.
and above we're in this mansion, and we go through this kitchen, and there's this cat just sitting on the table, and
Yeah.
my character Chiron goes over to pet it, and the commander dragon just fucking eats it.
Okay.
And
Out of
I'm still
spite.
holding a grudge. Because
that's fun.
it's a primal companion. It doesn't need to eat.
Really?
It did it just to spite me.
That's really awesome. So when when you think about those contrasty ways, do you guys know before what other players to play? Do you exchange a lot, or do you sit down, for instance, with Louis and just get there and everyone presents their characters, or do you have a clue about it?
A little bit. So he typically will bring us all into a Discord server
Yeah,
and make general introductions. He'll declare when the session zero is.
yeah,
Some people will always start, tapping away at a character.
yeah.
Otherwise, we have session zero, and then that gives us a brilliant chance to start talking about characters. And I'm. It feels weird to think of myself as like an experienced player because I don't feel like that sometimes. But I know that I could craft a character to kind of fit any role in the party at this point. I feel
Mm,
quite confident that if I needed to, I could just insert. So I typically let everyone else kind of talk about characters and what they want to be, and then I'll
mm.
find something that kind of fills in any gaps that we might have if I see it. But so far, I haven't really needed to do that much thought in terms of party composition. We've been pretty lucky, I'll be honest.
Okay,
But people start
that's
talking and discussing, and then from there.
that's awesome. So, if you think about now your ways of character creation, it comes very easy to you at the moment. What was when you started out the first time looking at the rules and learning from the first master that you or with the Fandelver group that you had? What was your experience like? How did you kind of like dig through the massive rule set that in the end, when you know what you're
Mhm.
doing, it's much easier to find, but it's always with the beginning, the player handbook is smashed on your table. Good luck. How did you manage to get through? What was that first character for you?
Oh God,
How
I
did
could
you come about?
probably find him. He was a warlock, I do believe. I forget.
Mm,
I think his name was Aravan. I do
mm,
believe he was a fiend warlock. Um, I wish I knew everything I do now going into it. Um, I didn't realize by picking him I'd be so limited in spell slots, which was a huge frustration during the entire campaign because I'm pretty sure we had a sorcerer who was just flinging off spells left, right, and center, and I was just
uh,
like, can we have a short rest, please?
uh, a little bit optimization for you.
Yes,
Playing a warlock is always great to multi-class into sorcerer,
yes,
but that would be power playing, power playing. Yeah. But yeah, that's
but
always like
I do
a good
love.
way to do it.
I haven't played. I love the concept of warlocks. I've played two at this point: a fiend and a pact of the another fiend, but pact of the tome. And I love them just for the role play potential of them, the
Yeah.
relationship between patron and warlock, and how that can play and what they may need. And oh yeah, I love the potential of them. I've yet to. I need to play one. I'll play one for Lewis at some point.
But how was your in general? How did you come up? What type of character are we talking? You are a
In
pact of the fiend. What kind of like fiend was it? What is the characteristics of the character? How did you
I
come up with
do
it?
believe the first one. The fiend was Grazit. I do believe he's like the bloody I don't know seductor devil, I suppose, of their league. And oh god, I remember my original character stories being so dramatic and over the top, and like I
Mm.
wrote like novellas for their backstories. I've gotten
Okay.
so much better. So I think like there was a point I was writing like 2,000-3,000 words for backstories, which is just too much. really. Like, if you want to write it, but like in terms of what you're going to need for like a module campaign, it is a bit much.
It is a little bit too much, yes.
Especially since I mean DMs struggle to bring as much as they can into a module campaign from your
Yeah,
backstory because everything's already set up.
yeah.
Um, it he was from an elf city, I do believe, and growing up, he didn't have any friends. In my head canon, I've got like elves don't have too many kids because of their long lives, so the generations are a bit more spaced out. So he didn't have any friends growing up, he didn't have any close siblings. He had this imaginary friend who eventually turned out to be Grazit wanting power. In like, I think his grandfather, my character's grandfather, like sealed him away so he could never fully materialize in the mortal realm
Mm.
through something. And he needed someone of the bloodline to break this seal. So he went after this young, naive little elf boy. And he was his only companion, his confidant. And I think I wrote it that he had like a crush on this imaginary friend. He was revealed to him to be like a real person. Like, I think,
Mhm.
I'm real. I'm trapped. You have to help me. You're my only hope. Um, and he did it. And he got taught this ritual to break the seal, and he realized like halfway through what he was doing, like what was
Oh
actually going
my
to
god.
happen, like reveal. So he kind of at the last second stopped it, and like the only thing he could think of, because the ritual was already begun, was turn it into a
Mm.
warlock pact ritual rather than like release him, seal him in another way, and then he was just stuck with this like really grouchy voice in his head, annoyed at what's happened, but also nursing a heartache from his crush who turned out to be like a demon lord.
Oh
They
my
were
god.
they were really
But
dramatic in the
that's
beginning.
yeah, but that's very extensive for your what you're kind of like coming up with your first character. Did you had the feeling when you started out that that is required that you go into in such
A
extensive
little. I think it's
detail?
because my roleplay experience was like really long, like on forum websites, and like they
Mm.
had like a minimum word count of like
Oh well.
500
Okay.
words each post,
Mm.
and like your character history, your character application, um, um, you make up a character and you apply and they approve it if it's got all the stuff, and like you have to write like 1,000 words for the history, and because it was an expense, like you have to write like 1,000 words for like your powers, and like I just got very much into the habit of just writing a lot for character stuff and for roleplay stuff, and I brought that with me into D&D, and it wasn't until this year with Lewis that I stopped writing. I got I saw this interview with Taliesin Jaffe and Matt Mercer about character
Mm.
creation, and they were
Mm.
talking about you only need to write what your character knows,
Yes.
and that like fundamentally changed my approach to character creation, and like cut like thousands and thousands of words away from my
Yeah.
backstories to just what he knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Because I always feel like that. I always feel like that, especially with newer players, but also with players that play longer. I always say the things that your character does experience should actually happen on the table.
yes,
It should
yes,
happen now and there for everyone to experience because it's not about as a master to read it. That's not the big deal. It always feels like that. For me, especially, it always feels like that you are kind of like required as a master then to implement kind of like the whole
yeah.
experience for that one player. But some people write really great background stories, and I always tell them write a book, please, because it's a great backstory. But I don't think it is. It is always the best thing that you can. And that's a really great way to think about it. Is when to think about your character. What does your character know? But also, how does a character kind of like feel
Hmm.
in certain situations? Because especially in my campaigns are to some extent sometimes very emotional to all ends, be it now teary to anger. It goes
Hmm.
in all directions. And I tell players more and often about think about certain situations, how your character would feel in deadly situations, in desperate situations, and bring something in from your real life and really think hard, how will your character in that difficult situation approach it, what I experience in real life? Because that makes it much more palatable, if you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean, to understand how I can project that on the table. And that's really cool. So, what is your most extreme character that you have? Extreme, I mean, most of the time, players create their character as an image of oneself to a certain extent.
I
There's a version, there's always a
think
version of oneself in there.
I think now
But what is the most extreme one that goes
extreme.
away from you?
Christ.
Yeah.
Um.
Extremely away from
Oh, for
what you would
me.
say this is total. Yeah, for you. What
Okay.
you would say this is the one character is totally foreign to,
Okay.
or it was really courageous for you
It's
to
actually
do.
my first
Yeah.
character for Lewis's campaign. I think. Actually, no. There's
Yeah.
okay. There's two. They're for different reasons. One, I had a elf paladin who he was Oath of Ancients, so he wasn't any kind of particular moral code. Unfortunately, he was very much just like keep the world alive, and like he was a party boy, to be honest. And the whole headcanon was the reason he wants to keep the world alive is just to keep the party going. If the world ends, he can't drink anymore. And he was flirty. He was Ivelios, that was his name.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he was a dick. It, he's so different from me. I really had to roleplay that. The other one would be my first character for Lewis was Mortimer. He was a hexblood druid,
Oh wow.
and he has to be for Curse of Strahd. He has to be my most chaotic character I've ever created. Like
What does chaotic mean for you then? Yeah.
I lean really heavily into the Fey aspect.
Okay. Okay.
So um, he took things very literally. At one point, they stayed at this mansion as guests, and he got told that like this is your room, this is the guest room, it's just for you. So he just kind of started putting stuff in his pockets because he just assumed, yeah, this is for me. And then they went to dinner, and he was pocketing the silverware because he got told it's for you. Um, and he was raised by a hag, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, would not have been a untraumatic experience. Um, I had it. Um, his mum made a deal with the hag to get pregnant with to have the man she loves fall in love with her, so they have a kid. And the hag was like, "That's fine, but your firstborn child's mine." The mother tried to go back on this, so the hag just killed them and took the child herself. And then his childhood was like either being babysat by his reanimated parents when the hag
Yeah.
disappeared,
Yeah.
and like I made constant mentions of the fact in the head canon for him. I imagine he wasn't very danger averse. He should
Yeah.
just stick his head into stuff, and it didn't always end very well. And I was just like, he got killed a lot in his childhood, and the hag just brought him back. So he had like no
Oh
meaning of
no.
death.
Oh wow. But what fascinates me about what you're creating, just to state, is how over you as you already established, you wrote a lot of role play, you contributed in those forums and stuff like that, so you had some previous experience. But what I find very interesting when you tell me about your characters is that they are very kind of like ingrained in the world in terms of, because I hear a lot, rarely players tell me like really clearly, okay, um Illmater, or some mechanic that you go for with the
Yeah.
hag, that you create a paladin that is basically a bard, but because he has a notion of, I need, as a bard I can't save the world, I'm gonna be a paladin to save the world so I can continue to party. It's all things that is very very interesting, to to see, because I would have said now just to say your first character, the warlock, really felt like, okay, that's probably Eddie. Just to say that's your first character, that's probably a
See,
projection.
I think I
That
went
that
really out there with
yeah
the first one because I didn't know what the
yeah
boundaries were. I didn't know what the limits were. So I went really out there. I think the second character was like he was raised in a cult, and he was going to be, God, and he was going to be married off to the fiend. He was like the leader of this cult, and at the last minute he was like, I'm good. I'm good with this, and he took the ritual book, the spell book of the cult, and
yeah.
that was his tome for the Pact of the Tome.
Oh wow.
And like the funny thing about that was like the game I was in, it was very West Marches, I think,
Yeah.
and the DM barely used anything from our backstories. So I wrote all this, and it was never used, and that was
Yeah.
really the case in the beginning, because
Yeah.
after lots of discussions with Lewis, I came to realize that I was writing so much into my backstories because like I wanted to have these experiences and these things happen, all these interesting things, and I knew that just they weren't going to be used in the sessions. So I was doing them myself. I have since been told that's what writing a book is. So
But that is amazing. The transition, I mean, a lot of players still today that I play with still struggle with the fact that they sometimes really get too ingrained into background story, not who is my character and how does it act it out. But if you want to have those situations or, kind of like have that
mhm.
fantasy in your head, I think the table is really great then just to do it there. And it's fun with the dices because it can
Yes,
go completely wrong
I
or
do.
completely amazing. Yeah.
I'm of the. I work in children's social care, and I've got the opinion, especially like a lot of our personality is based off experience we've had as children.
Yes. Yes.
So I think a lot about the childhoods of my characters to get a sense of
Yeah.
who they are as people and their personalities and their
That's
weaknesses.
interesting.
Like for
That's
Kyle, my
interesting.
Tiefling Paladin,
Mm.
he. So I really leaned into the fact that in the player handbook it talks about the fact that Tieflings are a bit mistrusted
Mm.
and side-eyed a lot in Faerun. So
Mm.
I had it that the parents were not ecstatic about the fact that their firstborn was a tiefling. Um, so he kind of grew up as like a secret in like a hidden room in the house, and like
Mm.
he had other siblings, and he didn't. He thinks he had a fine childhood. Like his parents were perfectly loving. He just wasn't allowed to leave the house,
Mm.
and like none of the neighbors knew that they had another child who was a tiefling. But
Mm.
eventually, his brothers convince him to go outside into the town at night, and someone sees him, and then the whole people with pitchforks and torches come to the tavern, wanting to give us the demon child,
Mm.
and his parents don't give him up, and that really cemented the relationship he has with his parents.
Mm.
Because as much as he did love them, it's very easy in that situation to really be like, "There's really something wrong with me," because I'm not allowed to go outside where my siblings are. So it created a whole martyr complex with him. He feels so guilty that because of him, his brothers became orphans. He feels like he's the one who murdered his parents, which is why I chose Illmater because it's all about self-sacrifice, and he thinks that if he can, if he can take on enough pain, he can do right in the world. He already thinks he's got like a negative mark against him because of his tiefling heritage. Like he has to do more because he's already so far behind everyone else in terms of putting good into the world. And his weakness he's a perfectionist. He's a bit of a masochist. He kind of hates himself. I feel kind of bad for him. I'll be honest. He's really nice though.
But that
I feel like I
is,
torture my characters a little bit.
yeah, well, I mean, why not, right? But I really, here's the thing that I really misjudged kind of like because my first thought was always when people create their characters as extension of oneself. But just looking at how you tell me about the paladin and its background, when you start out with childhood, that you really go deep in that sense. That you quite changed it up, right? In the one extreme, you wrote all about those experiences, which
Mhm.
doesn't very well work on the table because you should have on the table. And
Yeah.
now I can really hear kind of like that you really go into the very deep end to really get this really deep motivation. Where does my character really come from? And it starts in many cases, right, in childhood. How when did you realize? As you said, you have background that might provided you with that, but when did you know? Is this the first character that you now create this way, or are
It's a
there
bit
so many other
both.
characters
I
that
think.
go?
Sorry, go on.
No,
Sorry.
no. That's good.
I think
Just
I
please.
think it comes from the forum because in the in the character bio you have to fill out, you'd have to fill in stuff about early childhood, teenage years, young adult. So it's just in
Ah,
my head. That's kind of how I just structure my backstories. And I start from the beginning and I go forward. And I used to do loads of detail, like I'm playing a Soul Knife rogue in a Waterdeep campaign,
mm.
and again for Lewis. Honestly, 4 of my campaigns are with Lewis a week. um, and I wrote a huge backstory. And once I finished that, I read through it, I realized that 70% of it was about his mother and not him. And like, because she was this, she's a psychic medium
Yeah,
from, she was orphaned, but like she had this vision that she could get a better life in Waterdeep, so she spent a lot of time going for that. And she started working for like organized crime to give them tips on how to avoid the police, and she amassed this wealth. She got
yeah,
this like on the wrong side of the tracks boyfriend. He was the father. That's the only reason she was with him. She had a vision that he would be the father of the child she wanted, and she eventually absconded to Waterdeep.
mm.
And I realized that, she probably wouldn't tell her kid most of this. So I cut like 70% of the original backstory into actually what was relevant. And it was because, write what you know. And like, if he doesn't know any of that, it's fine if I think that's what her story was. But it's so
Yes,
much more satisfying leaving it to the DM to fill in the blanks. And Lewis has done an
yes.
amazing job because she is now his mother has become entrenched in the whole Waterdeep mystery, and she's an antagonist. I think
Oh, good.
only two of me and another
Amazing.
player were the only two who like had characters from Waterdeep.
You're
So
amazing.
Lewis has really ingrained and integrated our backstories into the city. So yeah,
Amazing. When you talked about that structure, is there somewhere because I'm really really piques my interest to see the structure if you could share that with everyone at some point, as a link or something where you can see how you structure that. I find this very fascinating because it goes really deeper, and especially in long-term campaigns. In short, maybe like
yeah.
like a one shot, it doesn't really matter, right? Whatever, let's play something fun. It can be even the source lock, as I said,
I
a
mean,
sorcerer warlock. But
I
I
don't
really
really have a
find this
link. Sorry.
structure. Yeah, you don't have a link, but maybe we could kind of like write this down. This is
Yeah, I mean,
amazing.
yeah, because I mean, essentially, the way I mean, actually do have the original character applications for those websites, but essentially it would be the normal basic stuff, like physical description, and you'd have to write like 2 paragraphs for physical description, personality weaknesses, um, which I think is also lended to the fact that I do think about my characters' personalities and what their weaknesses would be. I think about how they would act. For
Mm.
some of my characters, I do take the Myers Briggs personality test with them and like try
Which
to
which
embody them.
which personality test are you taking?
Myers Briggs,
Ah, okay, yeah.
and like
That is actually
I've embodied them and like see what comes up.
that is amazing that you take a personality test for your characters. This
It
is
teaches
where
you a
did
lot, stuff you don't even
yes,
think of. Like I've done one, as you know, Lewis, and we're starting a D&D Twitch stream in
yeah.
January. So I put a lot of thought into my character for that. And I did the Myers Briggs personality test for him, and I learned a lot about what came out in terms of strengths and weaknesses, and it's amazing the stuff that I kind of subconsciously knew but didn't really. It wasn't like I wasn't consciously aware that I crafted
Yeah.
them like this. But when reading through, like, wow, actually, yeah, I'll give you that.
Wow.
Nice, good going test.
This is amazing because I will steal that. I'm not a player, but if I have kind of like an NPC that needs a little bit more depth, I will definitely do
It's
that
a big
because
test, though. It's a commitment. I'll be honest.
there's another test called 16 personalities, and
Mhm.
there's
Yes,
pay.
I think that's the one.
Yes, that's one that I do for myself once a year,
Yeah.
because I want to see. Since about 5 years, I do this once a year, so I can
Mhm.
see how my personality is shifting a little bit. Right over time,
Mhm.
it's not extreme left or right, but it's just you sense, oh, because of those events in your life, you maybe change a little bit your viewpoints, you change a little
Mhm.
bit your working style, stuff like that. But I will do that for very deep, especially my long-term characters, because doing a personality test reveals so much how you play it, right? It's how you go about it in general.
I
Wow.
think because you spoke about like archetypes of people, and I do a lot more recently. I do feel like my characters are different facets of my personality. Obviously, extrapolated and twisted a bit and like made bigger. Like I think Chiron is my want to do good in the world. I do want to leave a positive impact in the world. I do feel like Chiron is the manifestation of that.
Yeah.
You've got Darren, or my he's a so nice rogue, but I've styled him as like a PI detective. Um, and he is kind of the more inquisitive nature of myself, the curiosity, asking questions, figuring things out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just take little facets of my personality sometimes. I just kind of play with them and see what and make them into something. I think I connect with all my characters on some. I think you have to be able to
You have
role
to.
play them,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
connect with some aspect of them, and then that just kind of leads me into
Oh.
the other aspects of themselves that I may not
Yeah.
be as connected to, and that's kind of how I role play them.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, even the most extreme version is that one play is still to some extent an extension of oneself.
I'm
As
sorry.
as many NPCs, for I can just tell it from a master's perspective, but I'm 100% sure that all the NPCs that I played, even if it's the most evil,
Mhm,
the most heroic, the most kind of like a good-willed person, being a mother, being a father, being a child,
mhm.
is always or being a goblin, which I always love for some reason. I always love to play a goblin. Um,
I
is an
tried to
extension of oneself. Yeah.
I tried to add logic to how I make them because
Yeah.
it's like if they're a cleric, like they have to have a god. Like I know some people play like I'm doing a Dungeons of Drakenheim campaign,
Yeah.
and they don't really do gods. They have it's more like a divine energy, which is fine. There's an established church, and I've put my cleric into that, and that's all great. But like normally when I play a cleric or a paladin, sometimes even when I play just like a normal, a non-religious character, I feel like if you grow up in a world where there's 100% firm proof that gods exist, you're going to be
Mm.
religious to some degree.
Yeah.
Like you're going to know who they are, and you may like throw a coin to the bloody
Yeah.
shrine of trying to think Lathander if you just want like sunlight one day. Like
Yeah.
it, like I think very much like ancient Greece or ancient Rome with their
Yeah.
deities. You know, not everyone is 100% devout, but like you know who they are. You would pray to one who you need every once in a while, and
Yeah.
I just try to have logic. Like if they're a cleric, that means in my head they would have gone to some kind of training with some established church or temple or some mentor. Same with fighter or ranger. Someone had to teach them how to be what they are. It's like who was that person? My Darren or my rogue, he had a mentor. He was a detective. That's where he learned
Mm.
his craft. He got his psychic abilities from his mother. He got the detectiveness from his mentor. Um, so I just try to think like how do they get from birth to the character who they are now, and just trying to fill in the gaps of like what
Yeah.
led them to be this person. What experiences did they have that means they're willing to go adventuring. They want to work with these people. They want to put their lives in danger. Like, you don't have to be an adventurer. I'm sure it's much safer staying at home working at the baker's than going to go fight dragons. Like,
Well, maybe Baldur's Gate not so much, but I know what you mean. I know what you
like
mean.
working on the farm's a lot safer. Like, obviously you don't get danger pay for it, but like you're not going to lose a limb, probably.
Yes, definitely, definitely. This is fascinating. How you go through, because as I said again, of course, a lot of people think about very fast about their character background, but then it starts mostly about I'm already established, or I already learned everything, or I have that and that experience. But you start very early to create that character. I really like that. And not only like, if you just build a timeline about born, went to school, you in between think about, okay, where did I stumble first, where what
Yeah.
experience did I had, but without writing the story, right, without writing everything down, but having just
Yes.
key
I
points
I
in a
focus on I do
timeline.
focus on the key points now.
Yeah.
I used to fill in everything. It's much more key points. And like I like them. Like I am playing, he's called Orion and he is a light cleric and it's in Curse of Strahd and he is the cowardly lion. It's my first time playing a very fearful character. Like he second guesses everything. He's always like, "Can we check for traps? I don't like this. I want to leave." Um, he is such a scaredy cat, and I want him to grow. Like I want
Yes.
him to
Yeah.
be affected by this world. I want him to grow into this pillar of light in this community that doesn't see light ever. And like I want that to happen over the course of the campaign. I want him to change. The
Yeah.
tricky bit is trying to gradually change. Like it'd be very easy for me to just one session be like, okay, he's changed now. Because like I have to do I have to do it
Yeah.
gradually so it seems like it's a natural change. That's the most
Yes,
tricky
it's
bit.
natural change. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
But like you always get those people who join campaigns that's like, he's a level one fighter, but like he's killed like a horde of dragons, and it's just like, okay, sure. Or you get the edge lord who doesn't need friends or companions, and he's sitting by himself in the tavern,
Yeah, I
staring
know.
moodily
Yeah,
at the room. And it's just like,
being
at the end of the day, you need your character to want to be in a party, in a group, and to work together. Otherwise, they're just going to leave you behind. And it's just like,
yeah.
we can't stop every 5 minutes to explain to you the conversation we've just had because you want to be by yourself in the tavern.
Yeah,
That's how this is going to work.
yeah, yeah. Do you find this frustrating? I mean, you have now experienced a lot of different tables. I mean, obviously, you played with Luis a lot, who took in a lot of new players, and he has certainly a certain style to ease and break people in. But did you ever experience something like extreme where you really felt, "Wow, that's really tiring," especially from a player's perspective, in terms of not work,
The
it
edge
doesn't
lord.
work out? Yeah.
There's so many. I think super traumatic backstories when there's not a lot of thought put into them. When it's very cookie cutter, like I got my loved one killed or something, and like it's
Mm.
just so skin deep in terms of like a backstory. It's obviously fine to do a traumatic backstory. I would be
Sure.
guilty because I've done it and
Yeah.
do it, but like it needs to be more than just a lot of the time they come to the table and it's just like his whole village got destroyed and he's the sole survivor and he tracked them down and killed this horde that apparently bested this entire village, and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, right. And you're sitting here with all us level one people, the wizard who can only cast level one spells, and are you sure you should be with us? It sounds like you should be in a different adventuring group.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's sometimes hard, but it really depends, right? If it's kind of like
Yes.
everyone plays that style, then it's cool. If only one or two people play it, that makes it much more difficult.
Or the play where everything's a mystery. Like they go so overboard on like everything being mysterious about their character, it just becomes very tiresome just talking, just conversing with them, because like it's just a lot of like empty statements and like dot 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 at the end of every
Uh,
one of their sentences. It's just like
uh,
I'm just gonna stop talking to you. It's so
yeah,
tiring.
yeah, I know that it is tiring. I totally agree, and the thing is where I try always to help players is to really truly to understand that yes, your character can have secrets, sure, but you need to stop at some point to be mysterious about it because there's no progression. The whole point of having a player group is to grow with each other,
Hmm.
and you might have your faults. You don't want to reveal everything of you, but at some point, this is the whole point. You need to grow into that character, and you need to let need to let players be part of. I mean, for my new the new long term campaign that we're currently doing, I simply said there's no secret. We are going even to an extent in our group that I played now for 3 years and now doing the second campaign is that we even don't have secrets on any level. So that means not even on meta, not even things like I said, people don't need to come to me in this campaign. Hey, Martin, I would like to do this, but other players should know yet. I'm like, no, we trust each other now so
Hmm.
much that even if we know that you like to steal stuff, we don't use
Yeah.
that fact in game. We play our characters, and I really like that because in many instances it is much in a grown up situation where everyone loves to role play. It doesn't matter that we know meta everything about every
Yes.
character. It doesn't really matter. We can play it anyway because we
Agree.
know
Your
that
character doesn't know.
our own character. Yeah, your characters don't know, so you can play it. But I always think that a certain transparency to each other, especially long term campaigns, needs to happen. And actually, I get the PvP sense of a lot of players. So players that really like to always player versus player or player versus GM
Hmm.
conflict style because they maybe come from a more video game kind of like
Yeah.
background or thought process about it. But it's it's collaborative. It's even collaborative to an extent that it's even collaborative with the master and the world
Yes.
building
Yeah.
and the players within, and we create each highlight for each character at the same time for each other. I think that's really important, and it makes it a much better experience for everyone. If everyone thinks like that,
Agreed.
you just generate a much greater table experience. This is awesome. Eddie, I said to you before when I didn't record that I will have at 20 minutes or 30 minutes a break. It was so interesting talking to you. It was even no. Honestly, I am very impressed about how you go about creating your player character because in principle, on high level, you could say Eddie does it the same way as most people that play for a longer time. But when you look closer, you're using some techniques that is very interesting also for me as a master of play with a lot of players. I find this incredibly interesting how you approach it because it's uniquely it has a method that uniquely also is very easy. Yes, there's a time
Yeah.
commitment, but the reward to understand your character better
Yeah.
that you created in your mind with systems behind it, with systems that have proven to analyze real human beings
Yeah.
and how they act out is incredibly fascinating, and it's something I will steal it out raw, Daddy. I will tell every player you need to check it out. You need to maybe do
I
a
mean,
test.
I like
It's
I
amazing.
I like intrigue and I like secrets, but I think the
Yeah,
issue about secrets is they're only enjoyable for the people who are holding them. It's not so enjoyable for the rest of the table. But to level up
yeah.
that secret so it's enjoyable for everyone is if you're not in on it. And what I've done with my character for the stream is I've put breadcrumbs, and Lewis has told me he's taken those and run with them. And now
Uh,
me and the rest of the party are going to be on this journey of finding out what the hell is my character because I have no idea what he's
my
done.
God, this is amazing. Yeah, but this is so great, Eddie. Just to say, sorry that again, but that you say, okay, I have secrets, but I will already think about the breadcrumbs that I give to the DM that allows others to investigate and have a system behind to get to your secret. Just shows that you that you think a little bit more about not only about yourself, but also the fact, okay, I have a mystery and it pisses probably every player off if they ask me like 1,000 times and I would say, no, I'm not gonna tell you. This is great. This is really kind of like collaborative thinking on a pen and paper. I really like that. Really
Because
good.
Lewis told us for the campaign he wanted us to have characters who have like an aim, who have like a goal, and like I do structure all of my characters like that already, but in my head, I want to have a goal that when I complete it doesn't mean naturally I can leave the party. It's things like with Critical Role, you had Beth, who her goal was to become halfling again and then reunite with her family. They got that quite early into the game, and then she stuck with the group despite her kid and her husband just like kind of being there. And like it could have been very easy for her to leave and for Sam to create a new
Yes.
character. So in my head, I
Yes.
do try to think of characters whose goal can be completed, but naturally it doesn't mean they have. It makes sense for them to leave the party because I do want to keep playing them.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know how long always your campaigns span, but I always say it's totally fine if one character exits and after a while
Yeah,
and completed their
because
task, and then a new character is created with and joins the group. I think that can be fine too. Yeah.
for our Waterdeep campaign for my rogue, we had his mum has turned turncoat and has joined this criminal organisation working against them. They
Yeah.
had one of his mentor got killed by the criminal organisation
Yeah.
who they're working against. One of the player characters died, and like there were these four potential fathers he had. The party keeps joking because he doesn't know who his father is. The party they keep meeting these males in authority positions, and they keep joking that they're the father. And so far, they've all died. So he's been through a lot of loss, and when they lost the player character, he was like the closest person, the person he was closest to in the group.
Oh
I did
no, that
message
or great.
Lewis. I
Yeah.
was just like, I need to think about it, but like, there's a very good chance Darren might leave the party at this
Mm.
point because like he's been through so much, and it's just like I need to think of a reason for why he would stay because he's an elf. Like he's only like 300. Like he can very easily just leave for 100 years, go to another city, set up, and come back. Like I feel that's very in the elven mindset. Just leave a situation and come back in 100 years, see what's
Mm.
left. And like I
Mm.
need to think of a reason for him to stick around because I don't think he wants to just keep losing stuff and being traumatized by everything going on. And yeah, I was very
Yeah.
prepared for him to just leave.
Awesome. So Eddie, when you for my final question, what do you what would you say for any new player, considering of obviously that everyone has their own experience in life and how to approach it? What would you give them on, like as a backpack? What should they do when they play first pen and paper as a player?
With like character creation.
You mean like
Um,
a
sorry, go on.
no, like what would you tell people that start wanted to play pen and paper the first time as a player? What would you give them as a on the road of their journey, how to approach it?
Um, write what you know. Only write what your character knows, I think, is like my mantra for character creation now. Because it limits how much you have to write, how much you feel like you have to write. And it gives the DM space to do stuff with your backstory. If you write out everything, and if you like conclude all of the interesting bits in your backstory, the DM is just like, okay, I just insert you into the game. There's not really much I'll have to really think about what I could do in your backstory.
Yeah.
Um, and also, you're not. you kind of already know. You're not learning anything, which I want to do. I want to see what Lewis does. I want to see what he throws at me so I can react and be amazed with everyone else and have aims. Like there's very unless you're playing like a very loosey goosey chaotic character or someone who's very like going where the wind blows me. Most people have aims and goals. I just try to think like what is my character trying to achieve? What is their end goal? Do they just want to be an adventurer? Do they want to open a restaurant? In which case, are they going out learning new recipes? Um, yeah, so have goals in mind and just write what you know, write what they know for your backstory. I think would be the main points I give to a new player.
Awesome. This is amazing. So, Eddie, thank you so much to being on the stream. Jesus, see, I just started out to do this now in the new year, and I'm not knowing what I'm doing. I'm totally still amazed what you have told us today. But thank you so much on being on, and I'm really looking forward to your stream with Lewis and the group and you guys together because next to Lewis, I really enjoyed in terms of how he thinks as a master. I also now know one of his players, and it really piques my interest how this is gonna play out because it's just so interesting to see. So, when does it? Do you guys already know when you're gonna start out in January?
The 27th of January.
The the 27th, and
It's coming up.
link. So the 27th is coming up. So link will be in the description below, and also probably I will put it up
Thank you.
here. And please, I will definitely be watching it because I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you so much, Eddie.
Thank you for having me.